Today on Twicam, we're at the Lancaster Insurance Classic Motor Show at the NEC in Birmingham for what is probably the best feeling in the classic car world. After 18 months of restricted shows, including 3 NEC shows being missed, we're back. And while I've attempted to record videos of some of the shows that have gone ahead, I've decided to shelve them as I feel I have the tendency to wander in such an unfocused manner as to make the videos unwatchable. However, I'm hoping this one will be different, as thanks to this show being so big, split over 5 halls, there are simply too many cars to go over in totality. So this is a small selection of the cars that twigged my interest in particular. We'll start in Hall 4 and where I was based over the weekend on the Metro Owners Club stand. Melvin is being used as transport this weekend as I'm with my friend Tom, owner of this 1994 Rover Metro Rio. One of the cleanest Mark III Metros in the world, and thanks to its Arizona blue metallic paintwork, all original I must add, and the newly fitted mini light wheels, is standout enough to have garnered by far the most attention on the Metro stand over the weekend. The camera does not do justice to the depth of this paint, a feature that Rover, despite all its issues, absolutely nailed in the early 1990s. So let's leave our stand and go out to the rest of Hall 4, featuring the vast majority of the British cars at the show. Having just seen the Metro Owners Club stand, the most natural progression is onto the MG front-wheel drive register, and a further few Metros, but this time MGs, and in particular this 1982 MG Metro 1300. This is my dream Metro, which is why I just have to show it to you. This car is also completely original, with a full history going back nearly 40 years. In Cinnabar red and the early black upholstery, this is the launch spec of the warm Metro, and being a Mark I is so focused in its design. The bodywork and dashboard are utterly minimalist. There's no body kit, just the pepper pot wheels, lip spoiler decals and slash tip exhaust identifying it from the outside. Internally, the red trim, carpets and seatbelts push it apart, and Austin Rover even styled the engine with a polished rocker cover and red engine block. A rung up the 80s MG range is this 1984 MG Maestro 1600. As with that Metro, this is the launch spec of the hot Maestro with a 1600cc Weber-fed R-Series engine, a unit that really did not last long, but thanks to this spec, we get 3 features that define the Maestro in 80s lore. The most obvious are the cheese grater alloy wheels, but the other 2 are internal, the digital instrumentation and the famous talking dashboard.
Running, battery not charging. Running, low fuel.
A few stands across the hall on the Van den Plas Owners Club stand is the MG's much more conservative brother, this 1983 Austin Maestro Van den Plas. You can tell that this is the posh Maestro just by its metallic paint finish in a Porto red. Being an early one, it has the same R-Series engine as the MG, the mad cheese grater alloys and digital dashboard, but it also has electric windows, central locking, a stereo radio cassette and a sunroof, all as standard. Alongside the Maestro is its grandfather, the ADO16, and in this form a 1972 Van den Plas Princess 1300. Unlike the Maestro, this is a very late ADO16 and by this point must have looked pretty old hat. But we can't forget just how enormously successful these cars were. The best-selling car in Britain for the best part of a decade and an integral part of the transverse engine front drive revolution. But this Van den Plas is much more regal than any other ADO16 thanks to the damask red paint, huge grille and of course the wood and leather interior. In this era, Van den Plas cars really were coach built, as the painted body shells were taken off the standard Morris production line and sent to Van den Plas themselves at Kingsbury, where they were fitted out with the best materials the company could get their hands on. As we did with the Maestro, I think we might as well also have a wander over to the ADO16 stand, with a few of the various badge engineered examples, including this MG 1300, a two-tone Wolseley 1300 and this much more normal Austin 1300. But of all of them, it's the one I'd have, thanks to both its modest spec but big engine and the aquamarine paint and beige trim of this example. The ADO16 is a fantastic looking car thanks not only to its Pininfarina styling, but also the efficiency of its packaging. Though not a hatchback, there is very little that can rival the practicality of an Austin 1300. Additionally, I love a bit of restraint, and if there's one man that knew how to achieve this, it was Alec Izagonis, so the dashboard is almost bare, featuring just a small selection of switches and a strip speedometer. Before we leave the British Leyland sphere, for a while at least, let's move across to the Allegro Owners Club International for a look at the car between the ADO16 and Maestro. But this isn't just any old Allegro. In fact, it isn't an Allegro at all, for this is a 1975 Innocenti Regent, built in Milan. During the 1970s, Leyland owned the small Italian company Innocenti, and as such, many of their cars were built and developed in unique ways by the Italians, leading to things like the mid-1970s Innocenti Mini Cooper, something we never saw in the UK, and this alternative Allegro. This car has only had 2 owners, having been imported to the UK in 2019 and on the odometer 188,000 kilometres. The equivalent of about 115,000 miles is impressive for a car that looks so mint, having lived for over 45 years, but there's a car on the stand up from the Allegros that wears its mileage on its sleeve, and it's this 1994 Austin Rover Montego. This car is by far and away the tattiest of the show, and there's a good reason for that. This car started life being used as a forensics officer's car, then being sold off to a taxi company and finally into private ownership, going through at least 3 owners and a 10-year spell off the road, having been recommissioned 5 years ago and used ever since. Having needed a new injection pump, a piston, a cylinder head and a gearbox, this Montego estate has covered nearly 1.25 million miles. An average of over 45,000 miles per year. Our final 60s, 70s and 80s Austin Morris Owners Club is the Landcrab Owners Club International, and my pick is this period modified 1971 Austin 1800S. I am in love with this car. For me, it's the perfect Landcrab with just the perfect level of modification as to make the car unique without removing the context of both the car and the early 1970s. Things like the wheels, the door mirrors, the vinyl roof, the front splitter and the fog lamps allow the car to look so much more luxurious and decadent than Izagonis would ever have wanted it to be. Similarly, the engine bay has been cleaned and polished to perfection, with the replacement of some items with shiny bolts and what appear to be copper pipes. Moving away from the volume division of BL and into what became a member of the specialist division and Rover, with this 1971 Rover P5B Coupe. The automotive face of the British government all the way up to the 1980s, including the royal family too, the P5 manages to be everything, from menacing and strong to elegant and restrained, all at the same time. One of the best styled executive cars, possibly of all time when taken in this later context, with road style wheels and the coupe roofline, and under the bonnet of course, that 3.5 litre Rover V8. We can't move on to later Rovers without first looking for a P6, and here is one. This 1975 Rover 3500 with lattice alloys is gorgeous, and a Resto Mod P6 is one of my dream cars. But the very different Rover that replaced it is just a couple of stands across, and of the SD1s on show, my pick is this launch spec 1977 Rover 3500 in the most 1970s of colours. This yellow paint finish suits the new world style of the SD1, something that nobody would ever have expected from Rover just a few years earlier. As this is an early SD1, it carries the similarly futuristic skeleton-style Rover Longship, a badge that was abandoned by the end of the decade in favour of a much more conservative, classically styled emblem. Moving away from model-specific owners clubs, we have the Gay Classic Car Group, the club that wins so many plaudits just for the sheer variety that they always achieve with their stands. Their cars are always of an amazing standard with an amazing amount of historical breadth, starting with this 1982 Renault Fuego GTS. I feel that the Fuego is one of history's forgotten cars, as it deserves so much more recognition for its aerodynamic properties and technologies such as remote central locking. But this particular example remained with its original owner for exactly 30 years, having covered only 38,000 miles before the current owner bought it from the original owner's family last year. Moving along a couple of cars is my pick of Haul 4. And though that may be a bit of a spoiler, I think anybody that has ever watched my channel or seen any of my tweets will know that I cannot resist a fast Peugeot. And this is one of the best, a Phase 1 Peugeot 106 Rallye. Alongside the 205 Rallye, these two cars I feel are the ultimate hot hatches. With tiny engines and feather-like curb weights, the basic recipe is there for perfection. Putting the platform aside, the styling of the 106 being based on that of the 205 the decade before is so crisp, but unlike many other small cars, it isn't cute. It has a subtle sense of aggression that suits the Rallye so incredibly well. The decals and white steelies contrast so well with the black paint of this example that this has become a car that has made me appreciate the colour black, and that's rare for me. This is one of my dream cars. The next car on the stand is another that just has to get a mention, indicative of not just how good the GCCG stands are, but also how much I appreciate this particular car, as it's not even a classic. This is a Honda S660, the K-Class sports car for Japan only that wishes it was in NSX. As it's built to the K-Car specs, it's both tiny and has a 660cc engine producing only 63 brake horsepower. That unit is, as you'd expect, a turbocharged 3-pot, mid-mounted, driving the rear wheels through a 6-speed manual box. Much like the 106 Rallye next to it, the S660 nails the basic formula for a small sports car, and I wish Honda would have sold them over here in the UK. But Japan was the only country to get them. That begs the question, therefore, why this one carries a United States number plate? And the answer is that this car belongs to the Lane Motor Museum in Nashville, but has made its way over here since the pandemic to have a bit of a British tour before it goes home again. From a car that, while nailing the recipe for a sports car, is incredibly niche, to a car that is one of its manufacturer's most important models. This is a 1972 BMW 3-litre CSL. This is a car that grew to define BMW's sporting intentions for the modern age. A true homologation special built with a modified engine and considerably lighter curb weight thanks to aluminium panels and thinner steel, as well as perspex windows and less equipment. This example is a UK original, meaning it does lack the perspex windows and has sound deadening fitted, as well as much more equipment, as the importer didn't think they'd sell in the original spec. Along those same lines, it lacks the mad aero kit as well, but that all makes this one a much more usable car, and one that doesn't attract the attention of a Batmobile. Our final car of the GCCG stand, and a German friend for our homologation special BMW, is something much less exotic. This is a 1968 Volkswagen Type 3 variant, or a Squareback as pretty much everybody refers to them. I love the styling of these Type 3 VWs. It's so recognisably German and from my favourite period of car design in the early 1960s, but it seems to have a natural smile. It also pleases me that the variant, the estate version, was by far and away the most successful, selling as many units as the notchback and fastback combined. This was a car that Volkswagen hoped would reduce their dependence on the Beetle and expand their market to slightly larger families. And though they sold about 2.5 million, history hasn't been enormously kind to the memory of the Type 3, and I think that's a bit of a shame. The modern classic executive car stand always has a good chunk of variety on it as well, more than you might even expect judging by the title. But my pick of their stand is this 1990 Honda Legend. A very late example of the first generation Legend. These were exceptionally rare in Britain, as we had the Rover 800 to play with, but this exceptionally conservatively styled car set a new boundary for Honda. They'd never built an executive car before this, but with its silky V6 and huge equipment list, the Legend was a huge success. This one is a Japanese market car, carrying with it the full array of trinkets you'd expect. an airbag and seatbelt pretensioners, ABS and traction control, automatic headlamps and automatic wipers, to name just a few. Before we start thinking about moving into Hall 8, I have one more car to show you all very quickly. This 1971 Lotus Elan Sprint. I think this might be my favourite small sports car of all time, for reasons that will be obvious to most of you. But this car is also among the most important sports cars in history, as it inadvertently created the silhouette for the average small sports car when Mazda decided to model their MX-5 on these original Elans back in the late 1980s. Hall 8 is jam-packed full of Fords. But before we head in there, there's one Ford in Hall 4 that needs mentioning, but it's not actually a Ford. This is an MST Mark 1. MST is the company that will build you, right now in 2021, a brand new 71 registered Mark 1 or Mark 2 Ford Escort. This Mark 1 Escort Tribute doesn't butcher an original, but is a completely fresh car with body shells built in Rochdale and assembled by MST to your specification, so you can go thrashing through a Welsh forest, the natural home of rear drive Escorts, in a purpose-built brand new car. And as we move into Hall 8, we might as well stick with the Mark 1 Escorts and this 1969 Ford Escort Twin Cam. Like the CSL we saw before, the Twin Cam was born out of motorsport, making what was otherwise a very standard and sedate saloon car into a weapon, capable of 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 10 seconds. This is also the car that birthed Ford's performance credentials, being the direct predecessor to the famous RS badge. Outside of the history discussion, this spec is what makes a Mark 1 Escort look so special. Keeping it simple is all you need. White paint, narrow body, little twin cam badges and mini light wheels make a car look so much more purposeful than any over-the-top decals, spot lamps and enormously wide tyres. Performance wise, this would be my dream Ford. But if you told me I had to drive it every day, I may instead choose one of these, a Mark II Cortina. And if any, it would be this amazing example of a 1970 Ford Cortina 1600E. Barring the Lotus, the 1600E was the Cortina everybody wanted at the top of the range. And for me, the Mark II stands out just enough to be smart and confident without being flashy. This example has been with its owner for over 7 years now, and in that time has had a colour change, an engine rebuild with an uprated cam, a 5-speed gearbox fitted and power steering installed. Alongside all that, a raft of electrical improvements that come together to make this car completely usable by anybody's standards in 2021. It's cars like this, having been made unique in very subtle ways by their owners, that I love so much. In a way only Ford managed, they added to the desirability of their range by transforming the Cortina into the Capri. And this 1969 Ford Capri 1600 GT is a pretty early one, in the same way that the Cortina we just looked at was one of the last. Despite very traditional engineering both in chassis and engine, the Mark I Capri won so much favour thanks mainly to its styling. By elongating the front end and compacting the rear, Ford could turn the upright, family-oriented Cortina into a grand touring coupe that people clamoured over each other for. When Ford stated that it was the car you always promised yourself, they weren't kidding. But when it came time to update the Capri a few years later, Ford rested on its laurels in terms of desirability and instead focused on practicality for the Mark II. As a result, this Mark II is wider and comes with a hatchback. This 1974 Ford Capri, unlike the Mark I we just encountered, has something under the bonnet that suits its appearance, with a 3-litre Essex V6, the top engine choice available at the time. That paints quite a contrast to the 1600cc Kent engine in that particular Mark I Capri. The big step forwards from the conventional engineering of the Fords we've already seen came in 1977 with their first ever transverse engine front drive car, exemplified by this immaculate 1983 Ford Fiesta L. This car, having been ordered in August 1983, must have been one of the very last Mark I Fiestas, just before its big facelift, and it's probably among the best Mark I Fiestas in the UK. The sunburst red paintwork is immaculate. The black trim is deep, and in its windscreen, the original sales invoice, showing that it was bought alongside an early Sierra diesel and traded in for a Datsun over 38 years ago. Further down the hall is a pair of Mark III Fiestas, but unlike the modest Mark I we've just seen, these are Ford Fiesta RS turbos, from 1992 and 1991 respectively. These boxy and excessively accentuated super minis perfectly characterise the peak of the hot hatch from the early 1990s, just before insurance issues began to really affect the genre. The 3-spoke alloys, bonnet vents, big body kit, quad front fog lamps, and of course the advertisement of the turbocharger all make this car so incredibly different to the standard Fiesta in a way no earlier hot Fiesta had been. With that excessive expression of power, Ford's decision to include green accents seems a little strange, but maybe red was overused when it came to performance. Certainly the colour always associated with RS Fords is blue, and that's evident in this 2003 Ford Focus RS. The car that brought Ford back into the performance world, having missed out really on the second half of the 90s, this is one of the hero cars from my childhood. Visions of Colin McRae and Nicky Grist piloting a WRC Focus through the forests is one of those that turned me on to rallying, and this car is the road-going embodiment of just that. Just as a basic car outside of the RS trimmings, the Mark I Focus is exceptional and completely responsible for Ford's success through the 21st century so far, as its predecessor, the last Escort, was so poor that the company needed something fresh, sharp and sophisticated, and fortunately the Focus was just that. I feel that's a good overview of the Fords in Hall 8, bringing us from the mid-1960s through to the turn of the millennium and Ford's continued market success in the UK. For this video I'm going to leave it there. In the next video we'll look through the other halls of the show through a bit more variety than the BL and Ford obsessions that are rather clear in these halls. But for now, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video then please do click like and subscribe to Twincam as well. I'm forever indebted to my wonderful Patreon supporters, and if you'd like to support me that way, then please do follow the link in the description. And I'll have more videos coming along soon.